Welcome to episode 44 of the POG Show, the Port Orange Government Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Springer, the Public Information Officer for the City of Port Orange. And today we're going to be taking a deep dive into our EMS division here within the city. And I am joined by our EMS Chief, Colleen Fitchett. Chief, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And just glad to have you here. I know there's a lot of things you've been doing the last few months here and implementing throughout EMS, different programs, different technology and equipment that we were excited to talk to you about. But I want to give our listeners a chance to get to know you a little bit better. Tell us a little bit about yourself. So you grew up in the Volusia County area, but was firefighting always something you aspired to do?
So I was born at Halifax Hospital, went to Mainland. Firefighting wasn't on my radar. I went to UNF for elementary ed. I was an athletic trainer in high school, and I ended up in a class at UNF that was appreciation of jazz. That was the catalyst that made me say, I don't think I want to do this. I didn't see how it correlated with elementary ed. And so I called one of my friends and said, can you look up any like EMT programs? She looked them up, and I called my mom and said I was coming home, and I went to EMT school and fire school, and then straight into paramedic school, which is where I ended up getting hired by Port Orange in 2005. Most of my instructors were from the city, so it kind of drew me to Port Orange Fire, and that's how it started in 2005.
What made you look for paramedics? Why the shift from elementary to kind of paramedic and medicine?
So the athletic training portion kicked into my brain, and I was like, man, when people went down on the football field or something like that, like I wasn't the person I wanted to watch. Like I was excited that I got to like run out there and help. And so I figured if that was something I was remotely interested in, once I went to EMT school, I realized that's what it is. And during EMT and paramedic school, you ride the fire trucks and you kind of see that family life, all the other things you can do in medicine. You don't just have to be in medicine. So that's what made me go the fire route. And like I said, all those guys in paramedic school that were my instructors worked here. So
and you've been here since 2005?
Yeah. I'm in my 20th year.
And you've worked your way up from, driver engineer, lieutenant, all the way
I got hired as a paramedic. Then I was promoted to driver engineer. Then I was lieutenant for about 12, 13 years. Sat for the battalion chief's test. Was next on that. And then we were able to get the EMS division back. So I interviewed for that and got that promotion.
Yeah, for people who may not know, what is our EMS division? What kind of calls do they handle? What do they do on a day-to-day basis?
So just for background, EMS, we had an EMS division. I had an EMS chief 15 years ago who retired, and that position just didn't get refilled. But call volume has gone up. We transport now, so oversight of basically all things medical. As Chief Miski, who's our operations chief, describes it as operations over EMS, and he's operations over fire, because we do both things. So oversight of training, of EMS, of recertifications, of equipment, any EMS movement within the department kind of falls under me.
And is everybody who comes here to be a firefighter, are they trained in EMS, or is that kind of a specialty field that you can go toward?
No, everybody, it's in Volusia County, it's really in the state, but everybody is at minimum an EMT. And then we have so many paramedics. Every one of our trucks is advanced life support. So at minimum, even if a fire truck shows up, you're going to have at least one paramedic, hopefully more, but at least one paramedic on scene. Currently, we do hire just paramedics as single certs and sponsor them to go to fire school if we get the applicants for that. But at minimum, everybody's an EMT and a firefighter.
Is it hard to find those paramedics in the pool?
Paramedics are overall in a little bit of a shortage, so I would say yes.
And since you've been here, you've done a lot of different programs, implemented some new things. One of the things you've looked at is some new equipment like the Lucas device to kind of help with those compressions and CPR.
Yeah, so coming into it, we initially had one Lucas device on our transport, which was great. Chief Miski, as our operations chief before me coming along, has actually implemented more of those rolling in. And I'm on the cusp of purchasing 2 more, so we also have a backup one for training, things like that. So they're just an awesome asset. They're fantastic on taking Not the human aspect out of it, but it saves us time. It frees up hands for CPR. So it provides continuous compressions mechanically that we now don't have to. It frees up our hands, the user fatigue, injury, all of those things. So it's super efficient.
Because it looks like almost like a bracket you would put over the person, and it kind of does those compressions.
Yeah, it's piston fed, so it's a suction cup that sits on their sternum and actually compresses and pulls back to allow for that full chest recoil that we teach in CPR. So allowing for that heart to be able to fill back up and the next compression to be effective. We get tired and we start performing over time. The compressions are less effective based off of fatigue. So this thing never gets tired.
Wow. And then how many of those do we have right now?
Currently, we have 5.
Wow.
Yeah. So we'll need one more actually to get the entire fleet all so that they all have them. But if our ambulance, every ambulance in the county has one, so if they're showing up, if it is a truck that doesn't have one on it, they will still get transitioned to the Lucas device.
So if we're going to a medical call, there's a good chance that that's on that either the truck or the ambulance there.
Yes.
How have you seen much benefit from that since we started using it, or kind of what have you seen since it's been...
I don't have hard stats. We're working with area hospitals because we do want to have with this a lot more follow-up. We like to, we're in the position where we end up transferring care or they go to the hospital and we just really don't know the outcome. And just for mostly our mental health of the follow-up. So we're working on finding out like outcomes and more stats but just personally from my experience, I'm able to jump calls. So I like to go be another set of hands. And just from my perspective, it looks like we are having a lot more ROSC patients, which is return of spontaneous circulation, with that device, transporting a lot more patients. So I don't have hard stats, but just from talking to our guys,
anecdotal benefit at least.
Me running the calls, that we have a lot more ROSC than we have in the past.
And there's also new airway breathing devices too you've been working with?
So we've always had the option of it's called a supraglottic airway that is an EMT can even put in. We've transitioned over time from combi tubes to we had king tubes.
So what are those? Is it just like the tube they would stick down
it's a
your
blind
throat?
insertion that goes in the mouth. To keep it layman's terms, but it goes in the mouth. And normally when we intubate, we put a tube in their trachea. This is a blind intubation that kind of blocks off the esophagus and rediverts air into the trachea. So it's not directly ventilating the trachea, but it is by rerouting that air. So currently we have the king tube and we're in a transition phase with our new protocol to go to iGels. The benefit of the iGels is they have pediatric sizes. So if we have those pediatric calls, that allows us to obtain an airway quicker, and an EMT can insert that. So one less thing the paramedic has to do on scene when they're drawing up meds and doing advanced procedures. We can get that airway device in quickly, and our medical director wants that to be the preferred method on cardiac arrests because there's no time that we're delaying getting an airway.
So that's a lot faster than the traditional
a lot
method.
less equipment. It's you open the package, you lube it, blindly insert it, and it comes with its own securing device. Where with the intubation, we have to pull parts and pieces together to make sure everything's set to go. So yeah,
I'm sure with your business, minutes matter. So anything
seconds matter for sure.
So everything you do to cut into that helps a lot. And then you also are doing some upgrades with our software equipment and kind of allowing us to track our inventory a little bit better so we know what we have, what we need to. Yeah,
so it's starting, we've implemented a software called Operative IQ, which has a lot of options, has the ability to do a lot of things. The first and most important thing we implemented was a narcotics tracking. So people are shocked that we carry the narcotics we do, but they all have a reason, pain management, sedation, things like that. But with Operative IQ, it eases how we track those on the backside and on the user side. So with an app on a desktop, we have tracking from each individual vial from basically cradle to grave. So that's fantastic. We're running a trial right now. All narcotics in our system are tagged already. We're checking them out every morning with it. We're just doubling our work for the month at least, where we're still using our old method. to make sure we get it right before we make the complete transition. But then, like you mentioned, asset tracking, it has the ability to track all assets. It has RFID barcodes. So the first thing I'm putting in right now just to trial it out is we just received AEDs in, and we can talk about that in a second, but that's the first thing I'm putting into the system. So I can put the manufacture date, the serial number, if there's any other expiration dates, like my pads, my battery, that this serial number is assigned to Colleen on this truck. So everything's tracked in there, can be assigned. So it's truck checkouts we can put in there. So that'll be down the road. The next thing we're really going to implement is our supply ordering through Operative IQ, because they link with Boundtree, who's our rep.
So they're the main supplier, and
Boundtree is our main medical supplier, and they have interoperability with Operative IQ. So at every station we have a supply room of EMS supplies. So that way when people go on a run, the crews go on a run, they need to restock. They have the ability to restock at their station. And then from those stations, people put in orders through just right now an email that says, hey, we need X, Y, and Z. And then our battalions fill that order and take it out. With Operative IQ and Boundtree, we're going to get to the level of they do a part check at their station. It automatically sends in the order. We can automatically click a button, order that from Boundtree. They ship it. It's already in the system of the expiration date. So we just don't have more efficient of not having things expire on shelves, at stations that run a little bit less, and being able to shift those supplies around. So just being able to track expiration dates is huge when it comes to that.
Because I'm sure with our stations, some are busier than others.
Yeah.
You got probably a lot more calls out of maybe 73 than you would out of maybe 75 or so.
Yeah, when you look at just 73 has a lot of assisted living facilities, right? Just look at the demographics.
And that's the one right here.
Right here in City Center, yeah. Our East Station 71 borders a lot of other cities too, and we use closest unit response for emergency calls. So if they're a one station department and they're on a run, of course we go and run that for them. So they're busier. So they just use a lot more equipment. So this has the technology to just figure out, supply and demand. They have to keep more in their stock than maybe somebody on the west side of 95.
Streamline everything. It makes it a lot easier for you guys.
Easier, more efficient. Yeah.
And then with the AEDs, what's going on with those?
So we have opioid funding from the opioid abatement money. Realize I'm driving an SUV that I'd like to help, and it's marked. So looked into the funding, and we just went ahead and bought 8 AEDs with that opioid funding to put in all of the vehicles that aren't ALS emergency vehicles. So all the division chiefs, our fire chief, we have an inspector that, is out and about all the time on job sites.
If there's a call, they're nearby.
Yeah, if there's a call or they just happen to be on scene, things happen, and we're there. And so we just took receipt of those, and we're going to put one at our training tower too. 99.9% of the time there's a fire truck, which they would have a cardiac monitor. But if that, for some reason, that's not out there, we'll have an AED at our training center and at Station 73 in case one of our vehicles isn't there, somebody is there without trucks there, somebody comes up to that station. And that's something I'm just looking to kind of expand even more, but that was just the first implementation. So we have those in all the, they're sitting in my office right now. I got them yesterday. We have those in the office, and they're going to go in our BLS bags that I put in service on all those trucks.
And you're also working with the schools too, right? With CPR training?
Yeah, so our goal is to get into every school in the city. We started with Port Orange Elementary, and it was actually 12 more of their teachers CPR certified. So that was the first push. I think it's super important, vulnerable population, and just the more lay people in general that know CPR. I would tell everybody, if somebody's not doing CPR prior to us getting there, we have the fancy tools, but that's how it looks like we save people. But the reality is the first person there starting that early CPR, and if there's a defibrillator nearby, like that's the best bet for that patient's outcome.
How easy is it to do the training? Does it take them like a week, a month to get it, or how long does it take you to
so
train
CPR,
somebody?
So there's different levels. We got some of the cops CPR certified or CPR instructor certified, my apologies, so they can train their own people. But so they take BLS for the healthcare provider, and the level that the teachers would take is called Heart Saver. So it's just a little bit lower of a level. They're not healthcare professionals. They're not running these calls a lot. And it takes about 3 to 4 hours. So that gets them all the training they need. There's hands-only CPR. There's friends and family. There's a lot more. In the process of trying to figure out how to implement a reoccurring class for the lay person. But right now we just don't have that scheduled out yet.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on.
You get a lot of calls about is like, my daughter wants to be a babysitter. She's looking for some first aid CPR training. Where can I go for that?
Yeah, and we try to get them to the right people if we don't have something. Like I said, we don't have a standing class right now. What we do offer is AHA offers what's called Heart Code. So it's a blended class. So they would go online, take the actual classroom portion, and then we would schedule them and they could come in and we would do the actual CPR,
the hands-on
skills, and get them signed off on that.
Do you get a lot of people asking about that, or how frequent do you have people stopping by?
It ebbs and flows, but it's not too frequently. It's usually people that just need to recert. They didn't realize it. They're trying to catch up pretty quick, and so they call and we say the quickest, most efficient way for you is to do the online portion because you can do it at your pace. Give us a call. We'll schedule you. You'll come by and you'll get with one of our CPR instructors at the fire department, and they'll get you signed off and get you your card.
It's just a good skill to have because you never know when you're going to need it, especially at the school setting. You don't want to be looking around for somebody else who may be certified. You want to be able to have somebody who could just jump in right away to do something immediately, so you're not wasting. Anything else, Chief, you'd like to talk about or touch upon that you're working on? Or
we were mentioning the AEDs. With those AEDs before that, while I was waiting for those, we went ahead and put in those same trucks that aren't your emergency trucks, BLS bags. That way we have like a little go kit, a little
what are
first
those
aid.
typically?
Yeah, so we have we actually got permission from our medical director too to have nasal Narcan. It's not something that paramedics around here carry, but we have nasal Narcan in there. We have BVMs to assist ventilations. We have trauma. We have a tourniquet in there. We have trauma supplies. And
is Narcan something you've been seeing yourself use more frequently, or
being off the truck? I don't see the immediate trends. Like normally we could tell, we're on calls and we're like, man, we're running these calls a lot more now. And it's trending up or trending down, but it's something we utilize a decent amount. So I know that the cops carry it and they deploy it frequently.
I've seen some businesses even have kind of like
there's a big push.
Stuff.
Yeah, you can get it free from a lot of places to have. I know a lot of people keep it in like their glove box, even if they don't know somebody that has an addiction. You never know where you're going to be and what time. So it's something that's nice to have. And then cardiac monitors we're looking at too. So we have some with our new AEDs. It's a new technology from Physio Control that allows, it's called CPR Insight. So if you've ever taken a CPR class, you have to pause for the AED to analyze. So you're taking your hands off the chest, doing compressions for the AED to do its job, and analyze to see if it needs to be defibrillated. With CPR Insight, we don't have to take our hands off. So it reads through that compression. So it's more time on the chest, which is better for the patient. And then if we're in the field with our AEDs, and our trucks are the ones showing up, we don't have to take them off of the pads that are already on there. They're going to hook up straight into our monitors, so there won't be any delay in care. And right now we're looking at the new monitors cardiac monitors for the trucks that have that same technology, CPR Insight. So same thing for our guys. Instead of pausing compressions to analyze that rhythm, they'll be able to keep compressions going with that Lucas device. Just look over at the monitor and make the decision from there without having to pause anything.
And it's great work you guys are doing over there. A lot of good technology and tools you're implementing that I think are going to make it a little bit more efficient, and streamline stuff to get those responses and be able to respond as quickly as possible, which is what's important in your line of work.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Chief, for being here and talking to us a little bit about what you're all doing. And Mick, take us on out.